Okay, so for today, we're gonna be solving, or I'm gonna be discussing about the soil classification. So, madali lang naman yung soil classification. It's much more easier, or it's much more easy to understand than the physical properties of soil. So, what we have in here in the left panel is the LMS or the module. And then on the right panel here, this is our example. Okay, so let's start first with, I believe, the easiest one. So this is the USDA. So it stands for the United States Department of Agriculture, and it's more on the texture classification. Okay, so in the USDA, they only have three types of soil. Actually, okay, so generally there are only three types of soil. So it's just sand, silt, and clay. So the classification under USDA just considers these parameters. Okay? So kung meron tayong gravel, okay, ang nangyayari is that we do not consider it in the classification, but we do not take into consideration the gravel. But we always have to identify the soil, or to name the soil na meron siyang gravel. Okay? So, in order for you to better understand that, we have in here an example. Okay, so the first step is actually to check if the soil has a gravel component. Okay, so let's start with soil A. So as you can see in soil A, meron siyang gravel content. Okay, so we're gonna classify this soil. Let's start with soil A muna. Ito, soil A. So we're gonna classify this soil according to USDA. Okay, it is imperative to check if that soil contains gravel. Kasi if it contains gravel, we have to modify the percentages of the soil. So as you can see, this is already in percentage, and meron tayong gravel component na 10%. Okay. So anong gagawin natin? Okay, dito sa left panel natin, check niyo yung formula. It says here we have to modify the percentage of each sand, silt, and clay components. Okay, kapag meron siyang gravel content. Okay, kung wala siyang gravel content, there's no need to verify. So before you're going to plot the percentages in this figure, kailangan muna natin siyang i-modify. Okay, so how do you modify? Okay, so start tayo kay soil in. Oops, wait lang. Ayan. Okay, so if we're going to modify, you just have to apply this formula. Okay, so that will be the first 1% of sand. Start with the sand. So this is now the modified percentage, which is now equal to the percentage of the sand, which is 20 all over 100 minus the percentage of the gravel times 100. Okay? So that is how you're going to do it. Now, for the silt naman, we have to do the same. So that will just be equal to percent of silt, which is equal to 41 all over 100 minus 10. Okay, this is taken from this formula, guys. Okay? So huwag kayong ma-confuse. Ayan. And then the last thing that you're going to modify is the percent of clay. Okay? So that would be 29 over 100 minus 10 times 100. Ayan. So that is the modification that we did. So let's now note kung ano yung bagong percentage nila. Technically, ginagawa lang natin is tinatanggal natin sa percentage yung gravel component. Ayan. So the first one, meron tayo 22.22, I think. Next naman is, as you can see, yung numerator lang yung nagbabago. Ayan. So, 45.56 And then we have 32.22. Okay, so these are now the modified percentages of each component, okay, under the USDA classification system. Next thing that you're going to do is to plot it in this figure. Okay? So, nandito yung figure na, nandito na yung figure, lipat ko lang here. Palalakihin ko siya, and then I'm going to plot it. Okay? I'm going to plot it in this triangle. So, first is yung sand, which is 22.22. So, I think it is somewhere here. Ayan. Next is yung silt, which is 45.56. So, yung silt mo, 45.56. So, I think nandito yan. Ayan. And then, the clay is 32.22. Maybe nandito siya. Okay. So, let's plot this na. Okay. So when you're going to plot, guys, you just have to converge or intersect the three. Okay, so the intersection would be follow nyo yung direction. So in this part, ang direction niya is pataas, going to the left. Yan. Mhm. Okay, and then next is yung silt naman. Ito, pababa ito. Kasi the point here is that we're going to intersect the three. As much as possible, dapat mag-intersect sila. Okay. And then, ito naman is horizontal. Ayan. Okay. So, where did they intersect? So, dito sila nag-intersect and this region is actually bounded. Or this is this zone is actually the clay loam. So, what will be the soil classification now? So, the soil classification is clay loam. Okay. But since the soil actually has a gravel component, okay, regardless kung ilang percentage lang yan, guys, kapag meron siyang gravel component, you always have to put the word gravelly in the classification. So that is now the final classification of the soil. It's gravelly clay lump. Okay, so that is yours for that is your soil A. Next naman for soil B, I'm gonna be solving the soil B, or should I say soil C na lang. Okay, so for the soil B, kayo nang bahala mag-solve doon. You just have to follow this one. Okay? So that would be, follow nyo lang tong percent modification. If the soil contains a small amount of gravel, you always have to modify it. Okay, kapag wala siyang gravel component, diretso nyo na siyang i-plot. Okay? So, diretso nyo siyang i-plot dun sa triangle. Okay. So, try ko tong soil B na lang. Sige. Ayan. So, soil B tayo. So, we have 21, yung gravel component. Okay. So, we have sand, which is 12, 35, and 32. So, your sand is 35, I think. 35 ba? 12. 12 pala. Okay. And clay. Ayan. So, meron siyang gravel component na 21. So, gagawin natin, i-modify natin yung percent ng sand. That will just be equal to 12 all over 100 minus yung percentage ng gravel, which is 21, multiplied by 100. So, silt din, ganon. Ang babaguhin lang natin yung numerator. Let's make this 35 all over 100 minus 21 times 100. And then percent of silt is equal to 32 over 100 minus 21 times 100. Ayan. So that is, let's now compute. So this is the first is 15.19. Ito naman, 44.30. And then, ito is 40.51. Ayan. Then we're going to plot it similar to the first that we did. So we have a sand component of 15.19. So I think it's somewhere here. Ayan. Then yung silk mo is 44.30. Clay is 40.51. So somewhere here. Yeah. So let's intersect the 3 there. Then diagonal din to. And here. Oh no, wait. Undo. Ayan. So I think the intersection of the 3 is somewhere here. So it will be classified as gravelly silty clay. Gravelly silty clay. So, ayan. Bye, ingat kayo. So we have gravelly silty clay. Okay, so that you just have to remember, okay, that if the soil contains gravel, you have to modify the percentage of each component. Okay, so you have to modify the sand, the silt, and the clay. Okay, so yun lang naman. Okay. So, ganun guys. Pero kapag yung gravel component niya is equal to 0, diretso lang i-plot yun. Parang yung soil C. So, it has 0% gravel. Okay? So, diretso nang i-plot ito. Okay? Intersect nyo na lang sila. And then, whatever will be the intersection kung saan siya mag-fall, yun na yung kanyang classification. At hindi nyo na siya guys lalagyan ng word na gravelly. Kasi, excuse me, wala naman siyang gravel component. So, wag nyo nang lagyan ng word na gravel. Okay. So, yun lang naman guys yung USDA. Okay. So, let's move on. I-solve nyo na lang yung soil C and soil D. Ganyan lang din naman yung process sa soil D. Sa soil C, diretso na, recta na siyang i-classify or ipa-plot dito sa figure. Okay. Next tayo dito. Okay. So, meron tayong next classification will be about AASHTO classification. Ayan. So, sa AASHTO, table-table lang din. Actually, sa lahat naman ng classification ng soil and all, table lang naman yung ginagamit natin. Okay. So, ito yung classification ng soil according to AASHTO. Okay. So, sa AASHTO, um, ginagawa dito, yung classification ng soil is actually alphanumeric. Okay, so alphanumeric siya. So, it's more on the characters. So, ito yung mga classification ng soil. Meron tayong A1, A2, A4, A5, A6, A7, A3, and okay, yun lang. So, A1, A2, A3, mga ganyan. So, paano ba natin ginagawa ang classification of soil? Okay. Ito guys, ang lagi niyong titignan Okay? Ang gagawin nyo lagi sa classification ng ash to, guys, dun sa table, you always have to identify the given. Okay. So, there should be a given. Okay. Or, dun sa given, dapat meron tayong percent passing number 10, sieve, number 40, and number 200. And we need to have as well liquid limit and plasticity index. Okay? Now, pag meron ka ng parameters na yan, okay, sa problem kasi minsan binibigay na agad, okay, ang unang-una mong gagawin is to identify whether the soil is actually a granular material or a silty clay material. Okay? So, sir, paano natin identify if it's granular or silty clay? Well, eto guys, ang definition. Doon sa granular kasi, it states in here that 35 or less of the total sample is passing the number 200 sieve. It means that greater than, I think, how much is that? 65. Okay, so I think it's greater than 65 ang percent passing. Kasi sabi dito, 35 or less ang total ng sample na passing that number 200 sieve. Okay? So, if it is 35 or less of the total sample is passing number 200 sieve, malamang ang classification yan is either ito, A1, A3, or A2. Okay? So, titignan nyo, ang unang yung titignan is yung percent passing the number 200 sieve. Okay? So, kung more than 35% naman ang nag-pass, okay, kung more than 35 of the sample, has the number 200 sieve. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so baliktad. Okay. So 35% or less pala yung total sample passing number 200 sieve. I'm sorry about that, guys. Okay, medyo naguluhan na din ako. Okay. So kapag 35% or less yung passing sa number 200 sieve, that is already a granular material. Pero kapag greater than 35% ang passing sa number 200, magpo-fall na siya sa silty clay. Okay? So, for example, ang percent passing ng 200 sieve mo is 65. So, it means that is greater than 35. So, magpo-fall siya under dito, silty clay materials. Okay? What if the percent passing is 28? Okay? 28%. It means your soil sample is actually under the granular material. Okay, so yun ang unang step. Determine the percent passing on the number 200, passing through the number 200 sieve. Okay? After that, after nyo ma-identify kung granular material ba siya or silty clay material, gagawin nyo is, okay, dito tayo titingin. Ililist down nyo yung percent passing in the number 10, 40, 200, mga ganyan. Tapos ililist down nyo din yung liquid limit and plasticity index. Okay? And then you'll begin to read the table from left to right and from top to bottom. Okay? So, for example, meron tayong example dito para mas maintindihan ninyo. Okay. So, for example, meron akong binigay yung parameters sa number 10, percent passing sa number 10, percent passing sa number 40, and percent passing sa number 200. Ngayon, titingin kayo starting from the first column papunta sa right, okay, kung anong condition yung nasa-satisfy ng soil sample natin. Okay? So, ito kasi, sabi dito sa A1, if the soil is actually having percent passing na maximum of 50 under A1, and then may have maximum of 30 naman daw dapat yung passing sa number 40 under A1 din, and then 15 daw ang maximum na passing sa number 200 under A1. Okay. So, kung nasatisfy nung soil sample mo yan, it means magpo-fall na siya sa A1. Pero kung hindi niya na-satisfy, guys, mag-jump ka sa next na column. Okay? So, for example, na-satisfy niya to sa A1B, sabi doon, 50% daw ang maximum na passing sa number 40. So, nasatisfy niya yon. Pero yung percent passing ng number 207, hindi niya na-satisfy. So, X na yan, mag-jump ka na sa susunod na column. Okay, so check mo ulit kung na-satisfy niya to at saka ito. Kung na-satisfy niya yan, mag-stop ka na mag-read guys. Huwag ka na mag-jump ng ibang column. Ito na mismo yung soil classification mo. Okay, ganun lang yun. So, similar to this one as well. Okay. So, similar lang din siya sa silty clay materials. Okay. So, silty clay materials, as you can see, wala siyang parameters for number 10 and number 40 kasi maliliit na yung grain size. So, malamang nag-pass na siya sa number 10 and number 40. Okay. Ngayon, ang titignan nyo na lang is yung number 200. Yung number 200, na-satisfy mo niya ang 36 minimum? Of course, masasatisfy niya yan. Pero look, this is also 36 minimum, 36 minimum, and 36 minimum. It means masasatisfy niya yung buong apat. Pero anong gagawin niyo? You have to screen further. Okay? I-screen mo pa siya lalo. Malamang may bibigay yan na liquid limit at saka plasticity index. Ngayon, yung liquid limit niya, i-compare nyo dito, okay, sa first column muna. Okay, kasi kailangan natin mag-start dun sa first column. Compare nyo muna dyan kung nasatisfy niya yan, kasi sabi dito sa A4, 40 daw ang maximum sa liquid limit. Kung nasatisfy niya yan, okay. Now, check nyo ulit yung nasa baba. Okay, yung plasticity index. Pag nasatisfy niya yung plasticity index, malamang hindi mo na babasahin, hindi ka na magja-jump into other columns. Okay, mag-stop ka na sa A4 kasi na-satisfy na nga niya. So, the classification of your soil will be A4 pag ganun. Okay? So, kunyari, na-classify mo siya A4. Okay. So, the next thing that you're going to do is actually to determine the group index of the soil. Okay, and how will you determine the group index? Kasi guys, normally kapag nagka-classify tayo ng soil, for example, gamitin ko to, A4 ang classification, sinusulat po natin yung group index number sa tabi niya. And that is the final classification. Okay? So, ngayon, how do we determine the group index number? Ngayon, gawin nyo guys, tingin kayo dito, meron kasi tayong formula for the group index. Ito, kopihin ko na lang siya dito sa ating gun kasi hindi siya masyado nakikita. Ayan. So, this is the formula for the group index. Ayan. So that is the formula for the group index, guys. So it's GI equals F200 minus 35 multiplied by the quantity 0.2 plus 0.005 multiplied by liquid limit minus 40 plus 0.01 multiplied by F200 minus 15 times PI minus 10. So that is the group index. Okay, so your F200 is the percent passing at sieve number 200. LL is the liquid limit and PI is the plasticity index. Okay? So, normally, binibigay naman, ito talaga binibigay ito, with no doubt. Okay? Para ma-classify mo nga siya agad. Then, normally, binibigay din to kasi the liquid limit of a soil can only be determined by laboratory means. And then, yung plasticity index, kung binigay naman na yung liquid limit mo at saka lang yung plastic limit mo, pwede mo makuha yung plasticity index. Okay? So, your plasticity index is equal to liquid limit minus plastic limit. Okay? So, kung binigay yung plastic limit. Okay? Tapos, kukompute mo yung PI. Okay? So, yun lang naman, guys. Ngayon, meron tayong conditions for the group index. Okay? Of the soil. Okay? Meron tayong group index condition for any soil. So, meron dito sa inyong LMS, nakalagay doon, kung ang formula natin, nag-compute tayo ng group index and naging negative yung value ng group index mo, malamang that will automatically be equal to 0 na. Kasi we don't take group index as 0 or rather negative. We don't write group index numbers as negative. Okay? Then next thing is that yung ating group index should always be rounded off to the nearest whole number. Okay, so we don't put group index na nakadecimal. Always round off siya, guys, to the nearest whole number. Okay? Then, number 3, sabi dito, no upper limit for the group index. It means, kahit mag 1 million yung group index ninyo, hindi siya, or valid siya. Valid pa rin siya kahit mag 1 million yan. Wala tayong upper bound. Okay? Basta wag lang siya mag-negative. Okay? Next is when calculating the group index, or rather, the group index soils belonging to A1, and then yung A1A, A1B, A24, A25, and A3 is always 0. Okay? So, kung meron dun sa table natin, okay, for A1, eto, A1, A1, ayan, yung mga A1, A3, tapos A24, and A25. Tama ba? Ayan. The group index of these groups are always equal to 0. So, kahit hindi mo na i-compute yung group index niya. Okay? So, take note of that, guys. Kahit hindi mo na i-compute yung group index niya, okay, it is taken as 0 na. Now, sabi din dito, when calculating for the group index of A26 and A27, ang gagamitin mo daw na formula is the partial group index for PI. Ano ba itong partial group index for PI na to? Ito yun, guys. The partial group index for PI is actually the second term of the group index formula. Okay, that is the partial group index for PI. And this one here naman, yung first term, that is actually the partial group index for the liquid limit naman. Okay, so kung A26 and A27 na yung ng classification ng soil, ang gagamitin mong group index formula is the second term of the group index formula. Okay, so partial group index lang kasi siya. Okay. So para mas maintindihan natin, meron tayong example in here. So, burahin ko lang to. Ayan. So, ito yung example natin. We have percent passing number 10 sieve, number 40, and number 200. Then, binigay din niya yung plasticity index of the number 40 fraction. Take note, the liquid limit and the plasticity index should always be the number 40 fraction. Okay? And this, ayun nga, 30 and 10 daw ang liquid limit and plasticity index respectively. Ngayon, classify natin siya under a AASHTO system. Okay? So, first step, okay, identify natin kung granular soil or silty clay na soil, silt or fine material. So, tingnan muna natin yung percent passing sa number 200 sieve. Okay, excuse me. So, ito siya. So, the percent passing at number 200 sieve is 58. Okay. Now, let's classify kung saan siya magfo-fall. Okay. So, I believe it will fall under silty clay materials because it states there that more than 35% of the total sample is passing number 200. And the number 200 sieve actually has 58% passing. Okay? So, may 58% passing siya. So, magfo-fall siya dito sa ating silty clay materials. Okay. So, sulat ko na lang dito. 58 yung percent passing sa number 200. Next is 100 ang passing sa number 10 sieve. Ayan. And then 80 naman sa number 40. Okay. Tapos binigay din yung liquid limit and plasticity index. So this is 30 and this is 10. There you go. Now, let's classify. Basahin natin yung ganon, yung ating table. Okay, so if wala tayong parameter sa number 10, so okay yan. Wala din tayong parameter for number 40. Now, yung parameter natin for number 200 meron, pero yung A4, A5, and A6, okay, that actually satisfies all. Okay? So, ang gawin natin, kasi pare-pareho naman sila, 36 minimum, 36 minimum, 36 minimum, 36 minimum. So, gagawin na lang natin is, screen pa natin siya further. Okay. So, check na natin yung liquid limit. Okay. Let's start with the first column. Okay. So, doon sa first column, sabi doon, 40 daw ang maximum na liquid limit. Which is, pasok pa yung ating given the liquid limit, which is 30. Okay, how about the plasticity index? Check natin. So, sabi dito, maximum daw of 10. And as you can see, we have the plasticity index of our soil sample as 10. So, pasok na siya dito, guys. So, it means there's no need for us to jump to any other columns kasi nasatisfy na niya yung A4. Okay? So, the classification of the soil as per table will now be A-4. Okay? Pero hindi pa dyan nagtatapos yung ating soil classification kasi we still have to identify the group index. Okay? So let's compute for the group index. Okay. So the formula is there. That's F200 minus 35. So we have GI, which is F200 minus 35. That is percent passing the number 200 sieve. That is 58 minus 35 multiplied by 0.2 plus 0.005 multiplied by the liquid limit, which is 30 minus 40, and then plus 0.01 multiplied by F2, rather, this is 58, minus 15 multiplied by PI is 10 minus 10. Okay. So, yung second term natin is mag-zero na. So, your GI is equal to, let me just calculate this one using my calculator. That's 3.45. Okay? Now, kailangan natin tong i-round because we always take into consideration na yung GI is rounded off to the nearest whole number. So, this should be 3. Okay? So, what is now the classification of the soil? That is A dash 4 and then close and open parentheses 3. Okay? So, this will now be your soil classification. Okay? So, yun lang naman for ASHTO. Tabular method lang siya. Wala namang masyadong complicated na formula in here. Okay? So, I hope na-gets yan. Okay. Try nyo lang sagutan ulit guys yung problem later on. Okay? So, what's the first step again? Determine the percent passing of at that number 200 sieve. Okay, then once you're able to determine the percent passing at the number 200 sieve, you can classify the soil as silty clay material or the granular material. And then you have to put the given, okay, and then identify if the given um, actually satisfies the criteria in each column of the soil classification. Okay, so you have to check that. Okay, so that is the classification according to AASHTO system. Okay, so let's move on to the last but not the least, the USCS system. Okay, so the USCS system is actually just a combination or just the idea of the USCS is a combined classification of the AASHTO and the USDA. Okay, so USCS stands for the Unified Soil Classification System. Okay. So parang kuan lang to guys, parang similar lang din to sa US no, parang similar lang siya sa AASHTO classification kasi table lang din yung gagamitin. Pero in here, iba na yung parameters niya. Okay. Now, how do you classify the soil according to USCS? Well, first, pareho lang siya sa AASHTO. You have to determine the percent passing at the number 200 sieve. Okay, so ang pagbasa natin dito sa table is from left papuntang right. Okay? So, basahin natin yung table from left to right and we have to determine kung anong parameter yung nasa-satisfy ng soil. Okay. So, first thing is to identify kung ilang percent yung passing sa number 200 na sieve. Okay. So, if the percent passing is greater than 50 or equal to 50, that is fine-grained soils. Okay? So that is your fine-grained soils. What if it is less than 50 naman ang passing? Okay? Malamang, dito na siya magfo-fall sa coarse-grained soils. Okay? So you have to determine the percent passing at through the number 200 sieve. Okay, after that, gawin mo is to identify naman the percent passing at the number 4 sieve. So kung dito, percent passing ng number 200, second column mo is, kapag dito ka sa taas guys, you have to identify yung percent passing sa number 4 na sieve. Okay? So, kapag nalaman mo yung percent passing sa number 4 na sieve, ma-identify mo kung gravel ba siya or sand. Okay? Andyan naman yung criteria, guys. Sabi dito, kapag more than 50% daw yung coarse fraction na na-retain sa number 4, it means that is under the gravel. Pero kapag 50% or more coarse fraction passes number 4, that is already a sand. Okay? So, yun lang naman yung pagkakaiba nila. Now, what if dito ka nag-fall sa baba? Okay, so your percent passing the number 200 sieve is greater than or equal to 50. Well, ang criteria na dito is that you have to check the liquid limit of the soil. Okay, so identify mo siya if silts and clays, and the second silt and clays. Okay, pero magkaiba kasi guys yung liquid limit nila. So yung sa taas, ang sabi dito, liquid limit is less than 50. Ito naman, liquid limit is 50 or more. Okay? So, pag check mo yung liquid limit nila, pwede mo ma-identify kung ito ba siya or ito. Okay? So, yun lang naman. Next, after mong ma-identify yung liquid limit as well as yung in the case of this, okay, number 4, sieve kasi yung tinitingnan dyan, yung nasa baba is liquid limit. So, after mo ma-determine yun, guys, you have to compute for the CU and the CC. Ganyan. Kasi ang next na isa-satisfy mo is actually ito. Isa-satisfy mo ito, yan, o yan, at saka yung mga yan. Kung masatisfy mo yan, okay, the classification of the soil is actually this, symbols in here. Okay? So, for example, ito lang yung nasatisfy mo kasi under gravel siya at yan nasatisfy mo. So, the classification of the soil is GW. Okay? So, as easy as that, guys. Okay? Sir, what if ganun? May mga cases kasi guys na nasatisfy niya ito, nasatisfy niya ito, nasatisfy niya ito, nasatisfy niya yan. So, it means the classification of your soil is actually this 4. So, isusulat mo doon GW-GP-GM-GC. Okay. So, dito sa USCS kasi, okay lang na maging dalawa or tatlo yung ganon, yung maging dalawa or tatlo yung soil classification nyo. Okay? So, compute mo yung CU, okay, and then yung CC, as well as yung plasticity index. Okay? So, ganun din guys dito sa baba. Okay, you just have to check ito. Kung yung PI mo is greater than 7, malamang that is CL na. Kung yung PI mo naman is less than 4, malamang that is ML. Okay? And then, meron tayong liquid limit, minus oven-dried, mga ganyan. Pero normally, hindi naman nagpo-fall dyan yung classification. Wala kasi, minsan kasi kapag sa problem, kung nagbigay na siya ng oven-dried, ganyan, liquid limit, mga ganyan, malamang, dito na siya mag-fall sa silts and clays. Okay. So, para mas maintindihan nyo guys, we have a problem in here. Okay. So, meron tayong liquid limit of a soil. Okay. Sabi dito, the liquid limit and plastic limits of minus 40 sieve fraction of the soil are as follows. So, we have liquid limit as 30 and the plastic limit is 22. Binigay din niya yung effective size, D30 and D60, which we're going to use later on for the calculation of the uniformity coefficient and coefficient of gradation. Okay? Then, binigay din niya yung percent passing sa number 8 na sieve. Okay? So, number 200 rather. So, that's 8%. And then we have percent passing sa number 4, 100%. Okay. So, anong gagawin natin first? Malamang tingin tayo dun sa number 200 na save. Ito, kung greater than or less than 50 ba siya. Okay? So, okay. So, this is less than 50, guys. 8% na kasi siya. So, dun sa table, kapag less than 50% ang nag-pass sa number 200 save, it means what? Okay? It means it is already under coarse grain soils. Okay? So, dito siya magfo-fall. Ayan. Coarse grain. Ayan. Kasi less than 50 ang nag-pass sa number 200 na save. Okay? Next. Okay? So, pwedeng ito or iyan kasi ang pupuntahan yan. So, what we're going to do next is to identify the percent passing in number 4, save. Okay? So, binigay naman yung percent passing sa number 4, it's 100%. Okay? So, magfo-fall yan under SANS. Kasi sabi dito sa SANS, 50% or more of the course fraction passes number 4, save. Okay? So, magfo-fall siya under sa SANS. Ayan. Ayan. Okay. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to identify if it's clean sands, less than 5% fines, sands with fines, or more than 12% fines. Okay? So, paano natin ito gagawin? We're just going to compute, guys, for the CU. Titignan lang natin kung CU is greater than or equal to 6 or and the CC is in between 1 and 3 or equal. Okay? Equal to those values. Okay. So, binigay naman sa atin yung ating D10, D30, and D60. So, if you can still remember the formula, compute muna natin yung uniformity coefficient, and that's just equal to D60 over D10. Okay. And that is now 0.135 over 0.085. Okay, so the uniformity coefficient now is 1.59. Okay, so it's 1.59. How about the CC, coefficient of gradation? So that's just equal to D30 squared all over D60 times D10. Okay, and what is our D30? That's 0.12. So 0.12 squared all over 0.135 multiplied by 0.085. Ayan. So this is now equal to 1.25. Okay. So, meron na tayong values for the CU and the CC. Meron ba tayong value for the plasticity index? Wala. Okay. So, your PI is equal to LL minus PL. And what is your LL? That is 30 minus 22. Guys, this is for soil A lang ha. So, yung soil B kayo na lang ang gagawa nun. Okay? So, the PI is 8. Okay? Now, let's check. Okay? Let's check kung ano ang masasatisfy niyang group. Okay. Let's see yung CU natin. Okay? So, our CU is actually equal to 1.59. Okay? So, that is, saan magpo-fall ito? Your CU is less than 6. Okay? So, the CU is less than 6. So, dyan siya magpo-fall. How about the CC? Yung CC natin is 1.25 and that is actually, guys, napagbaliktad lang to ha, it should be ganyan yan. Okay? So, that should be CC is greater than 1 but less than 3. Now, eto, CC mo is greater than 1 but less than 3. So, masasatisfy niya din ito. Okay? Huwag kayong ma-confuse ha, dapat ganito yan. Okay, nabagbaliktad lang. Okay. So, from there on, you can say na it is under group symbol SP. Okay? Next, hindi pa dyan nagtatapos. We have to check the PI. Okay? Lahat yan, i-check mo guys. CU, CC, at saka PI. Okay? So, sila, interrelated yung tatlo. So, the PI is 8. So, saan siya magfo-fall? Sabi dito, PI is less than 4, so hindi na siya mag-fall dyan. How about PI is greater than 7? Mag-fall siya dyan, guys, because your PI is 8. So, you can say that this is actually SC as well. So, what will be the classification of the soil? So, the classification of the soil now is SP-SC. Dalawa ang group symbol niya. Okay? So, yun lang naman guys, yung idea behind the USCS classification. Okay. So, if you do have questions, try nyo na lang sagutan yung ganon, yung Soil B. Yung Soil B naman, I think, nandun sa PDF of the PDF na in-upload ko na examples sa soil classification. Okay? So, ganun lang naman kadali guys yung soil classification as compared to the physical properties of soil na sobrang daming formula. Okay? So, if you do have questions, just DM me in the Telegram. Kung hindi ka makapag-reply agad, pagpasensyahan nyo na guys. Okay? Kasi I have a lot of students that I handle 4 sets of geotech and then 4 sets of CEP, which is more on project proposal, mga ganyan. So, ang dami-dami kong chinecheck din ng paper. Okay? So, those are the 3 classifications of soil according to each organization. First, we have the USDA textural classification. Second, the AASHTO. And third is the USCS. Okay? So, isolve nyo na lang ulit yung mga problems na example para mas maintindihan nyo yung lesson about soil classification. And please, if meron man kayong Besavilla na book na geotech, please solve those as well para mas makabisado nyo yung soil classification. Okay, so I hope everyone understood the lesson. Okay, and I'll see you guys sa susunod na video lecture. Bye-bye.